There's actually a good bit of research backing up Seinfeld's contention in his op-ed that New York City and other metro areas will bounce back from the pandemic. First, people have been fleeing cities during epidemics for as long as there have been cities. That is, for millennia. Here's an article, a quote from an article in the JSTOR Journal, observing in the 1798 yellow fever epidemic, the majority of citizens of Philadelphia evacuated. Affluent Philadelphians rented, often at outrageous prices, rooms and homes in nearby villages. Sound familiar? Well, if people flee, do they come back? Well, two researchers looked at plague outbreaks in 17th century Amsterdam and cholera in 19th century Paris. Mark Frank and Matthias Corveri, I hope I said that right, found, quote, heavily affected areas recover in prices and aggregate house and rent price growth, return to their initial growth paths within a few years after an epidemic. On average, what they found is that housing prices in cities hit by pandemics fall 5.5% in the first year and another 4% the year after, but both housing and rental prices after a few years rebound to prior levels. They say we attribute the absence of any long-term effect on house prices and rents to the resilience of cities to major shocks. New migrants often underpin the rebound, as do infrastructure upgrades that cities undertake to enhance quality of life after pandemics. Now, technology and work from home present a bigger challenge this time around, but these technologies have been around for a while, as Seinfeld pointed out. The attraction of cities is social, cultural, and economic as well. Sarah, what the research shows is that the real city killer, it's violence. That could lead to a serious, lasting exodus from metro areas, but not too bad for the comedian, his economics, Sarah.
No, that's reassuring. Actually, the point you just ended on was what I was going to ask about, which is this time different because of this resurgence of violence on the streets of New York? The number of shootings, is it turning people away in any sort of permanent way? Is that in the data yet?
I think that's an issue. I think if you compare it, though, the studies that I have read about inner cities in the 60s, there was a sustained period, Sarah, of 4 or 5 years of riots. I guess that began with the Watts riots in Los Angeles and lasted for a very long time. We do have this terrible upsurge in some inner city violence, but it's not, I think, on that scale at this point. It's hard to know how people will be affected. The idea is once things clear, people have tended to come back, and it's kind of like almost like it's obvious, right? Paris underwent so many different epidemics, as did London, by the way. And fleeing London was just sort of a normal part of being wealthy in London. They would just flee to to their manors out in the countryside, and that's what's happening now. But the data show they will eventually come back, Sarah, and prices will rebound.